Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DeFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco, who has been creating espresso machines by hand in Florence since 1927. There is no other espresso machine that comes to mind, at least for me. When I think of espresso machines in the coffee industry, it's quintessential. Their almost 100-year history has been based on serving retail customers just like you with consistent innovation, with dependability, beauty, quality. This is why La Marzocco is at the heart of some of the world's best coffee bars. One of the great machines that they've come out with that demonstrates these properties is the KB90 espresso machine, with its straight-in locking portafilters for ergonomics, built-in scales to the drip tray to help with extraction precision, and also for better workflow and cleanliness, they have the auto flush feature in the group heads. This is just one of many different types of espresso machines that will fit your budget and your coffee shop. I would encourage you to go to lamarzocco.usa.com and check it out for yourself. And they are available to help you make the right decision for your coffee bar. Which machine should you get? To do that, just email info@lamarzocco.usa.com, and they will be happy to help you out. If you're looking for dependability, quality, beauty, all rolled up into this innovative package, then I think the choice is clear that you should be getting a La Marzocco espresso machine. Again, check them out over at lamarzocco.usa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Espressly, who's creating custom-branded mobile apps for your coffee shop. So you're not just a dot on a map with Espressly. When a customer of yours has your app in their hand, they know this is the coffee shop I know and love. The branding says it all, and it's also very convenient. So it's the perfect marriage of these two things. And with Espressly, it's a no-risk model. There's no setup or development fees. You get a drive-through payment scanner, receipt and label printing capabilities. All of the data is stored in the app itself, and it also integrates with some of the world's best payment processing systems, including Square. So what's not to love here? I think if you're looking for apps for your coffee business and to offer something very convenient for your customers as well as something that's 100% you, then you need to check out Espressly. Go and visit them now to have them start on your app today at espressly.co. That's espressly.co. Okay, everybody. Well, today I wanted to talk to you about something I don't think that I've talked about on the show before, but I think it might be valuable to you, if you'll pardon the expression, because we're talking about values, and we're talking about my values. I help my clients go through and establish their values almost immediately. In any conversation I have with clients, we're going to establish a set of values that we operate from that will basically inform every other thing that your business does, down to how you clean a toilet. It's all based on that initial decision that you make for what's important for you and how does that kind of feature itself in all of the other areas of your business. And Keys to the Shop has been operating for 6 years now, and I personally have been in coffee for 23 years. This is one of these things that just doesn't seem to stop time. Eventually it's going to be 30 years. And over the course of those 2 decades, I personally have developed a lot. Every one of us has, started somewhere. And I hope when you look back at your former self, I don't think you need to, be disparaging necessarily, even though I tend to be. It's kind of fun for me to disparage my former self and say, well, what a jackass that guy was, In a lot of ways that was true, but I think there's some truth to the idea that if you look back at the way your business was 5 years ago or who you were 5 or 10 years ago, you should be able to be a little bit embarrassed. Like, I was doing those things and okay, that's, something I would never do today, but you're learning. There's something that my son has to deal with now. He's 9, and we'll show him videos of himself when he was a little baby or 2 or 3 or 4, and he'll get a little embarrassed. I'm like, well, buddy, you're 3 years old. These are things that toddlers do. And, his sensibility today is like, that's so babyish. Ugh, can't believe I was like that. you're in good company. Don't worry. But it's encouraging that you've developed as you have. If you had stayed that way, he thinks you might not be learning very much. Okay. So thankfully, I've learned over the course of my career, and learning is proven by the fruit of changed behavior. And, that includes the things like values, where I've come to value other things now. And I have a little bit better understanding of what may be timeless values that I've developed just through observation, through hard earned lessons. And what I would say is legitimately wisdom. Wisdom is something that you don't just download, it's not something that you can be taught necessarily. Wisdom is the synthesis of a lot of experiences over time into a particular framework of thinking, a worldview towards a topic. So, wisdom regarding your family, wisdom regarding your business, and other things in life. And in our case today, it's a matter of saying, look, as your business goes on and you go on in the industry, your perspective towards things is bound to shift, and you should be open to that. And the later versions of who you are and what you value are more likely to be things that are sustainable and built from more information, more lessons learned. And so, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, of course, is, like I said, my values as it relates to this show, Keys to the Shop, to Keys to the Shop Consulting, and what I do through both channels, the podcast and consulting. I want to encourage and reflect these things in the way I approach my work. But also, I think these are things I hope that my listeners, such as yourselves, and the clients that I've been able to work with and have had the pleasure of working with over the years, have been able to take on in their own way. There's 4 things, and as anybody who's trying to cheat the system, I've kind of hyphenated these, or I've, got 2 parts in each one. Probably need to refine these a little bit more myself, but I wanted to go through each of these and, talk a little bit about what they mean and see if they resonate with you. Anytime we're doing values exercises, I think it's important to recognize we start general and then we auger down into specific application. That's where it becomes yours, right? So, first one for Keys to the Shop, which is in a lot of ways synonymous with who I am as a coffee professional, is integrity and honesty. So, integrity is, knowing that even when you're not being watched, you're doing the right thing. You're being honest. There's this inkling in your mind that you could get away with something and somebody would, never find out. And if we're all honest, we've had moments where we're just like, I don't care. I'm just going to send the drink. I'm going to allow them to continue to think this. But there's a part of us that wants to make sure that we're 100% honest with people. And if we pave the path more in the direction of exceptions, rather than the path towards integrity and honesty, the rule that we kind of have for ourselves and we know we would want from other people. That's how you know that this is something you value, especially because you want other people to be honest with you. You want them to operate with integrity towards you. But then when it comes to us, it's easy to say, well, it's harder than I thought it was going to be. And for me, I reference the Bible where there's the concept of swearing to your own hurt. So if you say you're going to do something, but it becomes remarkably inconvenient for you to do it, you still do it. That's integrity. That is something that I think is very valuable when it comes to leadership. It's something that I want to do when people trust me with their business as clients. And you all out there in the podcast listening world are hoping that I operate with as well. And, one of the things that I definitely want to communicate to people is I'm going to ask questions of guests that are honest questions, and I want to operate with integrity to my audience and to my guests, and just have that level of sincerity that's not trying to twist things and manipulate things to my own advantage or even my own viewpoint necessarily. So integrity and honesty, I think, is really important as a value. Now, number two would be curiosity and discovery. Curiosity and discovery is one of those things where I obviously see the coffee industry as having a lot of different elements to learn from, and not thinking that you've come to a conclusion too soon and leaving room to be wrong about something. If any of us who have been in the coffee industry for 10 or 20 years can tell you that the way that we trained people back in the day has probably been proven wrong by, Barista Hustle or James Hoffman or, somebody out there, Lance Hedrick, or there's someone out there who has said, hey, by the way, that thing that y'all were training everyone to do is complete and utter BS. And I'm here to say, okay. I mean, I can look back at my former self and again say, oh, how shameful that you were having people tamp on a bathroom scale when you first were a trainer. But everyone was doing it. We didn't really know any better until we knew better, and we don't. So there's that. Curiosity and discovery is maybe part and parcel with humility too. I mean, you can't really discover and be curious and then be prideful and closed to new information, right? You've got to put your pride and ego aside in order to truly be curious and learn and discover. And if I'm working with a client, then I definitely want to make sure that we're going through and getting to the bottom of things and building from this place of integrity, but also curiosity. If we're talking about a problem, we want to be curious, like what's going on here? If you're talking with a coworker or with a barista on your staff and you want to get to the bottom of something, you have to have humility and ego aside, and you want to be curious and you want to have a sense of discovery. And for me, this is something that I need to cultivate a lot more because I'll be honest with you, I love being right. Being right versus acting rightly are two different things. If you just have the desire to be right all the time, you're probably going to be a pretty insufferable person to be around. And there's a balance here, okay? So curiosity and discovery is the second value of keys to the shop. We want to explore, we want to create different platforms for that discovery and curiosity, for people's stories, for the subjects, and the interconnectedness of all of these things that we call the coffee industry. Now, the third thing is patience and constance. Kind of the same thing. Constance is obviously something where Keys to the Shop has over 700 episodes, and that's just a commitment. That's constance. That's also patience in the process too. And the times I have been sort of like, I'm not going to make it, are too numerous to count in terms of, getting podcasts out there. But there's a certain kind of faith and trust and patience that you have to have with the process that because of your dedication to consistency, the answer will reveal itself, and you place yourself in the right area of thinking, in the fellowship of great people and minds, things will happen, and you have to be patient in the process. Now, Keys to the Shop is going to continue to be in development as a business for a long time. And I have to be patient with that process, just as much as anybody who runs a coffee shop has to be patient with the process of developing their coffee shop. Who knows how it's going to unfold in the next year or two. You just have to be faithful to take the next step that makes the most sense for the most good for the most people. And that's one of the things that I value a lot. The last one here today, before this turns into a full-length episode on a shift break, is depth and rootedness. So depth and rootedness versus having a mile wide and an inch deep kind of perspective on just the topics that we cover. And this is a coffee podcast focused on practical, actionable advice and exploration of things that will make a coffee retail establishment better. It will make us as professionals within that context better. So we want to go deep with these topics. We want to get to the root of the problems or the opportunities, and we want to be stable entities that develop and grow with richness and meaning over time, rather than being clickbaity, rather than being opportunistic and chasing trends. One of my values is I want to produce more depth, more established roots in truth and best practices in relationships and in service to one another. I think those are the things that make the industry really sing and create more prosperity, more stability, and more joy for everybody in the journey. And so these are the things that really inspire me. They're the things that I hope that you see from Keys to the Shop, and I'll get better at that as I go. Of course, there's probably a lot of things that are missing from this. We could talk a lot more about these things, but again, I don't want to turn this into a full-length episode, but I thought it'd be fun to share a little bit about my thinking, things that are valuable to me, especially when it comes to approaching coffee as a business, this podcast, working with people, and just what I want to see more of in the world too. So it's that integrity and honesty, that curiosity and discovery, constance and patience, and then depth and rootedness. Those are the 4 things, 8, I guess, but really 4, that resonate with me, and maybe they resonate with you as well. So I hope that you found some of this encouraging today. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and I'll see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from Keys to the Shop.